Hey guys, here is the gear for today. The last of the 31 shaves of a metaphorical Austere August. We're into September now. That's why I say that. And so 31 days consecutively with Chiseled Face Midnight Stag with the same soap, the same razor, the same brush, the same cologne. I did have trouble this month with just leaving things different places as I traveled around. You know, part of the month was in kind of the summer holiday. I left my Nacet blade in one spot. I had to shave with a feather for, I don't know, a week and a half. I left my original, the splash that I started out with at another relative's house. I had to, first of all, I had to use City Slicker for a while. Then I was able to find my other alternative Midnight Stag splash. And so it's been, it's been a rough ride a little bit. But this gear has stayed with me the whole way here. And finally, I'm seeing a little bit of the bottom of the tub here on this Midnight Stag Chiseled Face shaving soap. 474 is going to be the count for today's shave on the Nacet. The Semogue Taj-handled Semogue Owner's Club is the brush for today. It's been soaking for a while, 15 minutes I think. Timeless is the razor. Open comb, stainless steel, 68 gap. And we can go ahead and put the blade in. The cologne and the splash are both the Midnight Stag as well. Identifying marks on the Nacet blade. Timeless does have a slimmer head, and so if you have to shave under your nose or some other type of crevice to where you find this head kind of bulky, it looks bulky, but really the part underneath the blade here, it really shouldn't count toward the razor's bulk, right? It's really the part above it. And I guess it's got a little bit more curve than some, but I think most people kind of count it as a bulkier razor than it actually is because it just has so much material below the blade, because after all, what's below the blade doesn't really affect how I don't think it does, how well you're able to get in there and get to the stubble. All right, so the stage is set, and I'm going to get my water on my face. I'm going to use my usual 3D printed lather bowl today. And so let's load up. 3 seconds has been a nice amount, or 10 swirls. But I've been getting a good bit. Why don't we just try 8 swirls today? I've been getting a good bit of lather. And I do let the excess water that does contain a little bit of soap drain out into the lather bowl. Sorry about the noise. So often I am able to make 6 or 7 passes of lather with those 10 swirls. Something I've mentioned the whole month is that the reason I'm able to load for such a short amount of time is because of some different factors, but maybe the main one, I'm using the same soap every day. And so because I load with a lightly wet brush, I am imparting some water to the soap, and that kind of softens it up for the next day. I definitely didn't start the month loading only for 8 swirls. And so I just like to kind of bring it to a point like that where it's looking like it's pretty well mixed. And then that's when I start adding my water. We'll start out with about 12 milliliters. With this soap, I know that I can add the water from the start. I don't have to take some special process to add it in slowly. Eight seconds sure looks like a good bit of soap, doesn't it? A good bit of lather. My friend HD Shaves is using MDC currently. This may take a couple of weeks to come out, so I bet he'll be done using it by the time you see this video. But he was reporting and I looked back at his, because I was curious how many days he had used it. I looked back at his SOTDs on Reddit. He's faithful to post those a lot of the time. And I did see that he had used it maybe for a week at my viewing at the time when I checked it. And so I did see that he was starting to reduce his own consumption of that, not loading for too long. I sure found that to be the case when I used MDC. Now he's having a different experience. He said that he didn't have anything to complain about that lather, with that lather about. And so he may like his a little drier than mine, or since he's a predominant face latherer, maybe that plays a difference in how the lather performs for him. I did try to face lather that some, but maybe he just likes that kind of lather. For me, it was kind of like this base, to where by the time I get as much water in it as I want, it is just kind of on the thin side. And if I back off, it just seems too dry on my face. But you know, his technique as a face lather is definitely different than my technique as a bowl latherer. So it could definitely be different. Look at that. Just 8 seconds and we've got tons of lather. So get my face wet again. Really enjoying the brush these days, right off the bat. It is giving me a large feeling and dense. I don't feel like it's just a bunch of strands, and there are a lot of gaps between the strands, you know. Sometimes 20 uses ago I could still feel that. But I suppose, and I can just only assume, that it's those extra split tips, you know, that have happened this month that are making the difference. Added a few drops of water to the brush here. Feeling just a little on the drier side. A good bit of lather. I've listened to my shaves with this new sink here, this new room, and I am sorry when I have maybe turned the water on a little too forcefully. It's easy to do with the levers that are here, but it does make kind of a noise. I'm going to try to do it a little less vigorously. Usual amount of growth here, about 24 hours. So this is the last shave of Austere August. I have learned some different things I think in the beginning, one of the things I learned was that the boar brush really was different. This particular one, if I just soaked it for 3-4 minutes, it was much softer and nicer if I soaked it for 10 or 15. A little water. And that's pretty significant because you can really change the way a brush feels with just a few extra minutes of soaking ahead of time. Now, if you like a little bit more tip feel, a little bit more backbone, then by all means, don't even soak your brush, or just soak it for 1 minute, you know. So, but if you want luxury soft, and this brush has not gotten floppy to me at all. And so I think it still has a nice medium backbone, maybe even a touch above medium actually. Cross grain now. So that was one of the first things I learned this month. Another thing was I tried a lather method by Walden. And you know, too much time, I think a whole calendar month has actually passed since then. I'm afraid I can't really remember what that method was. I remember it didn't quite do for me what it does for him. But I thought it was neat to try out. And because it helps him, who knows, maybe there's somebody else that it will work for as well. So I was glad to pass that along, and definitely glad to try it out. I also discovered, and this is probably the biggest discovery of the month for me, what I have called the slurry lather method, where I call it a slurry because when I think of a slurry, you think of a very liquid, a very watery type mixture with other stuff kind of in it. And that's the issue here with the soap, with that method. I took a very wet brush, I loaded it in the tub and actually not a very wet brush, just kind of my usual wetness. But relative to the amount of soap that was put in, there was just a lot of water in the brush. And I did not take the time to work the two together. I started working on my face, and with that method, and it was kind of invisible at first because, you know, the soap and the water weren't mixing together in a lathery kind of way. Beginning the third pass here. And something about the soap not completely turning into lather. It was super slick. It was more slick than what I'm using now, and what I've really ever been able to generate when I try to kind of mix the soap and the water together to form a mature lather. You know, some term that means immature lather might be another alternative title for that method, because that also kind of represents what's going on. A little bit of water now. And then while being kind of transparent at first, it did slowly start to build up a lather, and eventually it looked kind of like this on my face because the brush was so wet. It was like there was concentrate on the brush a little bit and water on my brush at the same time. And so the second pass, I was able to keep going. The third pass, I still had plenty of water, plenty of lather able to be generated by the brush. And that is different than face latherers, because they often run out. Whereas a face lather often starts with a higher concentration relatively of soap versus water in their brush. And then they gradually add water to build up the lather to where they want it. Whereas I, with that particular method of the slurry, generated the lather on my face, but starting with from a point of having lots of water and a little bit of soap, and then the lather came together. And so it's kind of like face lathering, but it's a different approach than the kind of the traditional face lathering that's out there. And a couple of you guys have commented, maybe Warren, was that with that method, that might resemble what guys have been doing for a very long time, historically speaking, who haven't taken the time to build up lather, you know, like I do. And you can see now after 4 passes how with those 8 seconds of loading, I've still got 3 passes of lather here in the bowl. How guys of yore, that's probably how they shave. They just got had their brush soaking. They just got a little bit of soap on it and had their brush pretty wet and just put it on. And then whenever it came together, that was it. They would stop. And I'm really interested in trying this method with other soaps and to see how it will work out. And so that's today's shave. Let me get a good rinse. All right, all good. Rinsed off. Brush has been rinsed and cleaned, stropped on the towel. He's ready to go next time. And here's the Midnight Stag splash. Kind of gotten used to the menthol with this. That's just kind of part of the experience with Austere August. I don't like menthol usually to a very high degree at all. I usually just like it to be omitted entirely. But that just because I've had to use that with the Midnight Stag that I enjoy. Here's the cologne for Midnight Stag. Then I've just kind of gotten used to it, and that's just part of what I do during this, and who knows, maybe someday I'll like it. But another thing I could do is get use a witch hazel type product or some type of unscented balm after I do the shave with the Midnight Stag soap. If I didn't want to use the splash, if you're in this kind of situation where you have a scent that you like but it only has a menthol type splash, you can use an unscented balm or something like that after the shave, a toner like witch hazel, an unscented kind like Thayer's, and then follow it up with the cologne, and then you get the terrific scent. Yep, I sprayed it. And you're able to enjoy that. You still get the face nourishing post-shave aspects, but then you get the long-lasting scent. So that's something you can do if you need to. After the shave here, loosen up the blade, raise your head, give it a good rinse and a shake, set it aside, and we'll disassemble that and tap the blade dry in just a few minutes. But that is it for today's shave. We can now put another dot on the card. So 474, right, is the count for today. You guys take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. I wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope there's something in this video to help you out with your shaving journey. Good night.